No phone calls, no messages. Nothing but junk mail and overdue bills to keep me company. Seems nobody wants to hire a real private dick anymore. A professional like me. A guy who does the detective work nobody else wants to do. A guy who wears hats and walks around in a black and white world. I began contemplating a more profitable line of work, like politics.
We are the show you want to know. It's time to talk to you.
All right, folks. Good afternoon and welcome to the Joe Mangiacotti Show here on AM 830 WCRN Radio Central. I'm Joe Mangiacotti, and you can join the conversation for the remainder of this hour, next hour that we have here together at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. Our text line is up and running. You can do that as well. Text it like you would any other number at 617-297-8388. 617-297-8388. It appears on the screen here in the studio in real time. We try to work it into the conversation. We know not everybody can hop on the phone at 1 o'clock on a weekday, so we give you that option as well. Of course, you can tune in to AM 830, but you can also tune in to the TuneIn app, where we do stream the station 24/7, 365 days a year, like thousands of other radio stations do. So that means you can take us anywhere. It's a great feature. Or tell Alexa to play WCRN, and she'll do that with no questions asked. And don't forget, this show is turned into a podcast when I get off the air, so you can subscribe to it. And you can do that on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Play, wherever you get your podcasts. Just check it out and go to joemangishow.com. And we see a lot of people use iHeartMedia for some reason. That's the most subscribed platform. And I think I mentioned this last week. There's been this uptick in Japan and Belgium for people subscribing to this show, which I think is fascinating. 508-871-7000. Today, behind the glass phone with me today, as I broadcast from the palatial but not overly ostentatious studios in Westboro, Massachusetts. And today's lineup is a perfect snapshot of where America finds itself in late 2025, a country struggling to reconcile political narratives with real-world facts, a government that often asks for trust it hasn't earned, in institutions that seem to break in their own rules faster than any enforce them, that's for sure. We're going to start with the White House's victory lap here because the jobs report, it's out there. It doesn't tell the full story, though. The latest White House victory on this job report, you've seen the headline right by now, private sector gains in wage growth for American-born workers. But when you dive into the data, the headline starts to unravel a little bit. Most of the net growth continues to be driven by non-citizen labor. Much of it is part-time, and the wages story is, let's say, selectively framed. Families across, say, New England aren't really feeling the boom. They're feeling a lot of pressure here. And I want every American-born worker to succeed, and those are coming illegally as well to succeed. And that's why they're coming here in the first place, folks. I want strong markets and predictable rules and, of course, opportunity. But I also want truth. If the federal government is going to claim success, it should be based on the honest numbers, not a narrative-building spin to this. So we're going to unpack that today because the gap between the official story and the lived reality is a little wider than we might have first thought, and that gap feeds a lot of distrust when you get down to it. Then you got the Jasmine Crockett's Epstein accusation fiasco going on. Congressman Jasmine Crockett, I don't understand why this woman has grown in popularity. She kind of speaks like a hood rat, but she's well-educated and comes from some relative money. And there's this persona that she's decided to put on. Is she wearing hood face? I mean, why is she acting and talking the way that she is? And don't you think I'm making that up? Just go Google and watch her 4 years ago, when she was first running for the state legislature. Go look at her a few years ago when she was speaking. She's very polished, and she didn't really have the accent that she puts on now. So that's curious to me. But anyway, she's attempting to explain why she falsely accused Republicans of taking money from Jeffrey Epstein. And then the explanation was not confidence inspiring. See, she blamed confusion So maybe she's like AOC in a constant state of confusion. And she blamed misunderstanding. She blamed context. She blamed basically everything except the one thing that mattered, responsibility for what she said, and the lack of understanding what she's saying and researching it. When a member of Congress throws the name Epstein at its opponents without evidence, that's not oversight. That's misleading. It's mudslinging at the highest possible volume, and walking it back with half-hearted excuses not good enough. This is why political discourse is broken. We have leaders treating truth as optional, accusations as performance art. Today, we'll talk about the accountability inside Congress, because if Congress won't police its own rhetoric, the entire system suffers. And I always love the stories to just illustrate the fraud and corruption, because for too long, we've either ignored it or allowed it or didn't even know about it. But now we have a sitting congressman indicted, alleged here that FEMA COVID funds were diverted into her campaign. So this one is extremely serious. It's United States Representative Sheila, and I hope I'm getting it, Sherfilis McCormick of Florida. She has been indicted by a federal grand jury, and prosecutors allege she diverted $5 million in FEMA-funded COVID vaccination contract overpayments into her own congressional campaign through straw donors and other schemes. Now, when Elon was back with Doge, and Doge is still around, and this stuff was coming out, and the anger and names that were thrown just for pointing this out. But what did we learn in the first days of Doge? That there's this general ledger that all these checks are cut with nothing to correspond it. So money that's going out, they aren't quite sure why they're cutting that check. It's just that it's set to be cut. So it gets cut. And they found contractors who had maybe at one time a valid government contract, sometimes to ridiculous amounts, like $18 million a year or something to that effect. And they would cut the $1.5 million check every month. And the contract's been over for years. And the recipient just kept cashing the check because they figured, as long as the government's going to pay me, I'm going to take the money. So where are we in those ones? Are we going to prosecute the fraud on that and get that money back? That's another show, I guess. But she also faces conspiracy charges over false tax returns and campaign finance violations. Now, this is just obvious, because if you have this scheme going on, this fraud and corruption going on, and you're stealing $5 million in COVID or FEMA COVID vaccination contract overpayments and getting it into her campaign, having to use straw candidates, of course there's going to be falsified documents. There's going to be false tax returns, campaign finance violations. You're taking federal money into your of course there's all. It's like saying, well, when somebody breaks into the country, they have to continue to break minor laws to stay in the country illegally. I'm not saying everybody who comes in illegally is then a drug cartel member pushing drugs, human trafficking or anything, but usually they have to commit a small level of identity fraud or just working under the table, filing no tax returns. These are things they have to do for self-preservation. Well, if you commit this, you got to commit other crimes to complement it and to make it happen. And she denies everything, calling the indictment a sham, but she has stepped down from her committee leadership role. Folks, this is the kind of story that hits every principle I talk about. Rule of law. No elected official is above it. We were lectured about that endlessly, were we not? Limited government, because the bigger the federal government programs are, the greater the opportunity for abuse of those programs. And institutional trust, which evaporates when disaster relief dollars end up in campaign coffers. This case raises deep questions about oversight of emergency funds, the vulnerabilities of massive federal programs, and whether Congress has meaningful ethics and any enforcement left. Ted, you wanted to add something?
Hey, if the Clintons can do it, why can't she?
Well, you know what? I know that's tongue in cheek, but it's actually goes to the point. If people are watching, and it's not like what happened in Haiti in the pay for play that was going on with the Clinton Foundation it's like the worst kept secret in Washington. So in Menendez, I mean, he got busted. I don't think he was bright enough to pull anything off. But here's the thing. If you see this happening and it goes on checked, on challenged, and certainly not prosecuted or anybody is paying consequences or prices for it, so it's acceptable, right? It doesn't seem that bad. And yes, we're going to dive into what that means for public faith in FEMA, by the way, and for the idea of equal justice under the law. FEMA already has some issues with their not helping anybody who's part of the wrong political affiliation, as we watched in the past. And of course, Charlotte's Web, 250 immigration arrests, protests, walkouts, fear. This is going on in Charlotte, South Carolina. The government launched Operation Charlotte's Web in North Carolina. I think I said South, North Carolina, resulting in more than 250 arrests in just 4 days. And that's only happens when you know who you're going after. These are targeted people. They know that they're there and they're hitting it, and they're hitting it hard. And if you get over 250 arrests in 4 days, that means you know what you're doing. DHS says 44 of those arrests have criminal records, including gang ties, assault, and DUI. But the community response has been explosive on this. We saw school walkouts, tens of thousands of absences, immigrant-owned businesses shutting down, protests erupting in multiple neighborhoods, and deep concern about the tactics. Again, with this masked agents. In the very early beginning of this, they weren't masked. Then they were being doxxed and harassed, and death threats to their families. And it is common practice, especially for officers on SWAT teams or special operations, to always mask themselves because of those things. Look, we got to take our first break here on the Thursday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. AM 830, 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. That's 508-871-7000. Hey, give us a call. We'll be back in 2 minutes, 10 seconds, actually.
What if your body already knows how to heal? It just needs the right support to do it. Bioregulatory medicine is a total body and mind approach to health that works with your body, not against it. It's a safe, gentle, drug-free, and proven medical model that supports your natural ability to regulate, adapt, regenerate, and heal without side effects. Whether you're seeking to restore health or prevent illness, bioregulatory medicine offers a smarter path forward. Take control of your health with knowledge. Visit brmi.online, home of the Bioregulatory Medicine Institute, a nonprofit global leader offering a powerful free library of trusted resources, articles, podcasts, videos, and more, all at your fingertips. Visit brmi.online. That's brmi.online.
Girton Graphics and Awards has been the name in custom apparel, t-shirts, embroidery, trophies, and awards. Whether you need custom t-shirts for your business, sports teams' uniforms, thousands of personalized promotional products, or trophies that truly shine, Girton Graphics and Awards has you covered. Operating right here in Worcester, Girton Graphics and Awards takes pride in their craftsmanship, unbeatable prices, and top-notch service. Their reputation, often imitated, never equaled. Stop by the showroom on Southbridge Street next to Coney Island Hot Dogs and see why Girton Graphics and Awards has been the trusted choice for over 50 years. Call 508-754-0200, 508-754-0200. Visit GirtonGraphics.com, GUERTIN graphics.com, or swing by today. Girton Graphics and Awards. We're still the one.
All right, folks, welcome back. Welcome back here to the second segment of the Thursday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN, where you can join the conversation for the time we have left together at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. And our text line is up and running at 617-297-8388, 617-297-8388. Texture, who, 873. Market ain't strong today. Dow has dropped 1,000 after being up at the open. Okay. Thanks for the update. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. So let's talk about the latest job reports that in September, the U.S. economy added 119,000 jobs. That's more than double economists' expectations. That's always good, regardless of, well, no, if they're all government jobs, it's not that great. Nearly all of those gains came in the private sector, though, with particular strength in healthcare. They had 43,000 jobs in healthcare and another 19,000 in construction. And wages in the private sector rose about 3.8% year over year. Now, that is real wages for U.S.-born workers, up about $700 since the current administration took office, with inflation down, by the way. So the White House claims that, well, native-born employment increased by more than 2.5 million over the past year. Employment among foreign-born workers declined roughly 670,000. We've had a lot of people, more people have self-deported than we've actually deported so far, by the way. Now, the emphasis on job gains for American-born workers aligns with the view that federal policy should prioritize lawful residents, domestic labor supply, and national economic sovereignty. The headline raises questions, though, about the size and direction of government intervention. Now, if private sector job gains are coming despite or because of certain policies, what role should government play going forward? A rising wage figure of 3.8% suggests strengthening bargaining power for the workers. Now, that resonates with free market libertarian ideals of voluntary exchange and compensation reflecting value. Now, the claim that employment among foreign-born workers declined while U.S.-born workers gained prompts discussion about immigration's impact on labor markets, wage levels, and domestic work participation. And I know they like to spin this whole thing about if we deport everybody, we're going to pay $19 for a tomato. Nobody's going to pick our salad. But besides that, sounding extremely racist, by the way, it's just not true. It's not true. The percentage of illegals that are actually picking aren't 80-90% like they want you to believe. Not to mention, automation has taken care of a lot of that. Increased labor force participation and employment gains for native-born workers reflect expanded opportunity and mobility. Key liberty-based values here, folks. Ted, you wanted to add?
Yeah, it's really a false narrative to say that we're not going to get a tomato for a tomato's price. We're going to have to pay double, or we're not going to have anybody to pick our lettuce or our peaches. That's all bull, because we have a very robust migrant worker program that brings in legal workers to do that kind of work.
Yeah. The percentage of illegal people who are picking your lettuce in your tomatoes are in the 3-4%. So it's just not this majority, and it's not going to dry
up. It's going to be lower this year.
That's true too. It's probably more. Because look, I mean, yes, the current atmosphere has certainly caused people not to go where ICE might be hanging around. And it's not tongue in cheek. It's the matter of fact of the issue here is if you're not legally here. I mean, this whole thing when Gavin tries to tell us, or J.P. Fitzker tries to tell us, military and National Guard or police, they're going to be at voting places. Why does that concern you? Because if you're illegal, it should concern you. But if you're a citizen who should be the only one voting, why would that matter? it would be irrelevant.
Sort of a sigh of relief.
Almost, yeah, it really is. So I don't think they think that's the flex that they think it is. Now, this report also comes amid certain concerns, rather, about delays and mythological issues because of government shutdown, by the way, which raises questions about how reliable economic indicators are and how that affects policymaking. Funny how all these things are questioned under a Republican or a Trump administration, but they're gospel under the Biden administration, when there were blatant lies about how well the economy was or job growth. I mean, we know the Biden administration was busted, or maybe the system was busted so many times. They inflated it by like nearly a million jobs. They constantly, after they make the big announcement, add all these jobs, and then, of course, adjusted them down. Plus, they were mostly government jobs, which isn't good news to you because you're footing the bill for those jobs and the retirement and all the benefits.
Corrections usually come on a Sunday night after everybody's gone to bed.
That's true. Or late on busy Friday. It's called taking out the trash, where you just dump everything late on a Friday when everybody's gone to the vineyard, or they've gone out to the Long Island, out to Montauk or whatever for the weekend, and nobody's going to actually see it. It's going to be buried and lost by Monday morning. And while the White House frames the report as America first, and it's an economic turn, underlying data shows that modest absolute gains, the 119,000 jobs, and still elevated unemployment rate, we're at 4.4. So the improvement may be gradual, not sweeping. But look where we were a year ago. It is good. It is good. Given that nearly all job gains in the report are attributed to American-born workers, how significant is that fact in assessing the border and health of our labor market? Its alignment with sovereign borders in the economic policy. So bottom line is, inflation is a fraction of what it was when this administration came in. The real wage growth is healthy. We're down on that inflation. But the problem, and I really think Trump made the mistake about saying during the campaign, I'll get prices down. He should have said, I'll get inflation down. Inflation, especially when it went into the nines, pushing 10%, it's hard to get the prices down once they've checked up. That's a massive. Now, fuels come down. Gas is $3 a gallon nation, if you know that's the AAA national figure. Eggs are a fraction of what they were. So energy in some cases have come down. So yes, prices have come down in certain areas. And he's adjusting tariffs in some places, which is funny because the New York Times wrote an opinion about that, saying, well, bringing down some of these tariffs doesn't really solve the problem, by the way, because the businesses were absorbing 80% of them. Well, you were saying that it's going to cause inflation, and now you're saying it doesn't matter. He's lowering them because the business is 80% of it anyway. You can't have it both ways. Either it shot your prices up, or it's not really much of a factor because the business has absorbed it. Again, you can't have it both ways. So sorry about that. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Let's go to Mark, who's waiting patiently. Hey, Mark, what say you?
I say Mexico's on getting headed towards the edge of a civil war. And I'll tell you why it's happening, why this turmoil is taking place in Mexico. What happened was that Donald Trump turned off the money spigot. Now they don't have any more cash flow. And now they're turning on each other like crocodiles and cannibalizing each other.
Yeah, I think I said it a couple of days ago. You know, the Coast Guard had the largest bust of their, I think they ever had, $360 million. Now, I don't care how big your, operation is. $360 million is a dent to the bottom line, period. Plus the, 21 boats or 27, I forget the number now, of narco boats taken out in the Atlantic Ocean. Mark, to your point, yes, the drug cartels and the health of the governments in Mexico are so intertwined. And we've talked about on this show, I know in the weekly report, We've talked about this many a times as to how tight it is. And the policy in Mexico is you take the cash, you take the lead. You know what I mean, Mark?
You want to know, I'll tell you another thing. Don't be surprised if the same operation you see taking place off the coast, the Atlantic and the Pacific coast of South America is not also taking place in the South China Sea. You know what I mean? What goes through the South China Sea comes from the Golden Triangle, if you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. And don't be surprised if it's going on in the South China Sea as well. He's cutting off the money spigot.
He is. And he also had some discussion, and not to me, and thank you for the call, Mark, I appreciate it, not forceful enough with Xi Jinping about the precursors to fentanyl. This is what's been going on for years, folks, is China has sent or sold the precursors of the fentanyl to South American cartels who had the labs in the kitchens, and then they were responsible for getting them into the United States and on our streets.
You mean the chemicals that they use to produce the fentanyl?
That's it, the precursors.
Oh, okay. I got it now.
So they needed the chemicals and the basic ingredients, and China shipped them. And even on some of these, believe it or not, foods that are General Mills or whatever are pushing, gummies and these wonderful candies and so forth. When the Food and Drug Administration had said, we don't like that, we're going to ban it or something. The chemists back in China add another molecule, they change something a little bit, and they push it back out because it now doesn't technically fall under what they banned. And now you've got the MAGA, right? The MEHA, the Make America Healthy Again movement going on. And you've got somebody who's been fighting this kind of stuff with RFK Jr., and he's saying, no, this stuff is poison and we got to stop it. The dyes. Look at the foods that have been banned in Europe for years and years. So if these companies can use real juice and no chemicals for the European market, but they poison Americans happily, finally somebody saying no. So I am good with RFK Jr.'s move on making America healthy again. But it's time to take the mid-show break here on the Thursday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show at AM 830 WCRN. 508-871-7000. We'll be back 2 minutes, 10 seconds, folks. Stick with us.
Time now for the forecast from the Boston Independence Group Weather Center. Call Jerry Doherty today at 877-772-1776. Retirement is within reach.
I'm meteorologist Sherry Spearn. Here's the latest Boston 25 weather on Radio 830 WCRN. We've got partly cloudy skies today with highs in the low and the mid 40s. Overnight tonight, we're going to see another dip in 20s and 30s. It's going to be freezing when you wake up tomorrow morning. Tomorrow's warm up, though, a little bit better. We have the potential for seeing some 50s on the map. Do count on still mostly cloudy skies, but there's no rain out there until Saturday morning for some south of the Pike. I'm meteorologist Sherry Spearn. You can hear Boston 25 live for the morning drive weekdays on AM 830 WCRN.
More live and local radio is next. Stay tuned to Radio Central 830 WCRN.
Perner Logging and Land Clearing. Fully equipped with state-of-the-art equipment to handle all of your lot and land clearing needs, whether it's 1 acre or 100. They regularly service customers in the local area and will travel to neighboring communities and beyond to get the job done. Now, whether you're doing new construction, renovations, or clearing land for a new development, the Perner Logging and Land Clearing team of experienced personnel makes small or large jobs run efficiently, giving them the ability to always keep the competitive edge. They'll quote your job from something small to hundreds of acres, factoring in all aspects, including the wood salvage value, if any. In addition, they have the right equipment for each size job, making for the most efficient job site possible. For every job, Perner Logging and Land Clearing make sure the client's goals are the main objective. Call Perner Logging and Land Clearing today for a free estimate, 978-270-9916. That's 978-270-9916.
All right, folks, welcome back to the second half of the Thursday edition here of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. You can join the conversation for the time we have left together here at 508-871-7000, 508-871-7000, or a text line at 617-297-8388. So I wanted to talk a little more in detail about this Charlotte's Web Operation North Carolina, resulting in over 250 arrests within the first 4 days. That's DHS telling us that. And among those arrested, 44 have criminal records, including offenses like aggravated assault, driving under the influence, battery, gang affiliation, MS-13 to 8th Street. These are the gangs I'm talking about. The raid has sparked protest, a school walkout. So they permit students to leave school. I wonder, are there any consequences to that? Does it go against them, or do they encourage it to go protest a absolute legal law enforcement entity doing their statute-regulated performance? Ted, you wanted to?
Yeah, they can go ahead and walk out and go to the protest, but they have to show up and be on the record so that the school gets their money.
Yeah, true. Yeah, right. Get their federal grants and federal reimbursements. Now, concerns among local leaders over civil liberties, racial profiling, and the aggressive tactics of federal agents. I think the federal agents have many of the videos I've seen have shown incredible restraint for what these people are doing. And I think more of them need to either be pepper sprayed or simply arrested, especially when you watch the video, because one of the illegals with a bad guy with a record that took off into the woods. And so they're going through the woods. It's North Carolina, a lot of woods, right? A lot of green. So they're into the woods. They're following them with whistles and screaming in their faces and calling them names. And I think that ICE should show up to do their function, but they should have a second wave of federal enforcement, whether they're federal marshals or DHS or what have you. And the second wave comes in behind the protesters and just start locking them up because they are interfering with their duly legal procedure, what they're chartered to do. And if you interfere with that, that in itself is a federal crime.
Yeah, it's a felony.
Absolutely. So if this is permitted and there's no consequence for the behavior they're doing to these ICE agents, why can't they do those to FBI agents? Why can't they do them to the sheriff or the local police?
Joe, back in our day, the police had this non-lethal weapon called a dum-dum.
Oh, I have my father's dum-dum.
Yeah. But since then, they've developed more effective methodologies. Why aren't our police armed with these type of devices? That I think there's a shotgun now that shoots a bag of sand.
Yeah, sandbag shotgun, sure. I think I think they should arm a wave of these guys with those paintball guns, right? And put pepper balls in there. That's all. There's all kinds of things they can do. The burner. I don't know if you've heard it. You've heard it, I'm sure, advertised in the station. The burner is a non-lethal projectile. You don't need a permit to carry. You don't need any of that. But it's like a gun-like instrument, but it shoots a pepper ball type of bag that is going to stun, if not disable somebody, because it's going to burn and all of that. But it can help you de-escalate a system or at least get out of there.
Yeah, the cops are using them. They shoot them at the ground, at the feet.
Yeah, because it pops up.
And it pops up and it sends out the dust.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've seen more people get the pepper spray from those First Amendment auditors, right? You see those people they go out and they just stand on a public street corner somewhere and videotape. And they wait to be challenged. Some Karen comes up. Or I love the guys because they just feel like they have to be listened to, that what they want supersedes your constitutional rights. And they tell them, stop recording. You can't do this. You got to move. And I've seen security guards who have grabbed the camera or whatever. And this one particular Jason guy who does this and lives off of it because of the views on his social media channels, literally supports him very comfortably. And he just spray paints or pepper sprays, I think, but it was a blue thing, right in the guy's face. And he had a mask on still, and it just covers his eyes. I've seen more of that in those First Amendment audits than I have, although I've seen some video of ICE agents doing that. They have an orange spray that they do. And I think they should do it more often. They're not in the right. They're not protesters. Protesters behave themselves. They stand in an area that they're allowed to stand in with a sign, and that's a protest. And they can have a megaphone and all that. Peaceful. That's it. The right to assemble peacefully. Once you cross into harassment and physically throwing things at them, never mind the doxing and all that, that's not peaceful. And you've crossed the line. You're interfering with their ability to perform. Therefore, you've committed a felony. Why aren't people being prosecuted for this? I don't get this. Now, what's going on in all of these? Operation Freedom, Charlotte's Web, all the different ones they have. It's just the example of the federal government exercising its sovereign authority to enforce immigration laws. Laws that are on the books, laws that Congress put into place. Congress makes and passes the laws. And if you don't like ICE's function, you have to change the law. So do that. Write a bill, get your representative to sponsor it and put it through the motions, or run, get elected, and present the bill. That's how you change it. Because all the protesting and all the violence you're doing isn't going to change their core function in their mission. And you've got leadership who have doubled down and resolved to do the function of ICE. So they're going to happen. Arresting non-citizens with alleged criminal histories is, look, they got to do this. This is their job. And all these people who don't have big, bad crimes, they're usually happenstance, because they are in the proximity of the bad actors that they had to go after.
Wrong place, wrong time.
Which goes back to the Democratic or the blue cities who do this self-proclaimed sanctuary city, which isn't a thing. It won't cooperate. They do have the power to tell their people, their sheriff's department. Well, sheriff can make its own. Sheriff doesn't answer to anybody, by the way. That's the thing about a sheriff. Once they get elected, they're elected by the people. They don't answer to, including the governor. So sheriff can do whatever they want in a county, by the way. And a lot of people may not understand how powerful a sheriff's office is. But the police of a city is controlled by either the select board or the mayor or the city manager. They have to listen to that.
Well, there's another layer, Joe, and that's the district attorney for that state and the district attorney.
But they're prosecuting, won't prosecute, yeah.
And that's where the disconnect happens.
Yeah. So when they do this, then that means that doesn't mean, okay, I say, they're a sanctuary, we can't go there. It has nothing to do with them. It makes no difference to them at all. It has no bearing on the federal mission of immigration and naturalization. So they just simply are going to go in and do it. But now, instead of them very easily and very peacefully going to the courthouse or the jail because a hold has been put on this illegal immigrant who's committed a crime, that's why they're in jail or the courthouse, and just turning custody over, they have to go into the community. They have to track, and they've got the intelligence, right? They've got the entire NSA to listen to all our phone calls and stuff. So they know where they are. They know where they're working. So when they go to that workplace, because they're working there, there's a pretty good chance there's probably 5 or 6 other illegals at the same job site. And guess what? They're going to get picked up too, because once ICE realizes that you're illegal, they can't just ignore it now and say, well, we're going to leave you because, you didn't rape or assault somebody or you're not in a gang, or you're not pushing drugs on the side. So we're just going to, even though we know you're illegal, we're going to leave you alone. All right, Ted wanted to say something, but let me just say this. This operation coincides with the broader aggressive deportation push that the Trump administration has.
So what I was gonna say, Joe, is very simply, these policies make it more dangerous, not just for the people who are reacting, not just for the police, not just for the ICE agents, or don't forget the marshals. It makes it more dangerous for that illegal immigrant community.
Yep, it does. And we've seen the attacks on the ICE agents have skyrocketed. And this thing with the vehicles, there's been this uptick in ramming vehicles into either ICE agents in a cluster or their vehicles. This is extremely dangerous.
It's considered deadly force.
Absolutely, it's deadly force. Quite frankly, throwing a hard object at their head is deadly force, and they should be charged accordingly, period. And while many arrests have criminal records, the full status and charges of all the detainees are not always disclosed, but raising concerns about the balance between enforcement and constitutional protections. But here's the thing. If you're not a citizen, the Constitution doesn't apply to you in the same way. You can't have no due process entering the country and then say you need due process to get me out. Even though we do, there is a due process, and that is you have a removal order. You need to remove yourself or we will do it for you. If you've committed a crime and part of that is after you serve your time, you're deported. Though that is your due process. And yes, when you are taken into custody, they're going to let you call family or immigration lawyer and all that, but you're going home or you're going back to where you came from, or maybe not. That's the other thing too, right? Because some people say, "Oh, that was the whole thing with the Maryland dad."
How do you like that Sudanese weather?
Yeah, wasn't they put him to Sudan or something?
Yeah.
Wanted to?
Yeah.
I don't know if they did. All right, we have to look. We Operation Charlotte's Web. It's going to keep happening, and it's happening in red states. I'm sick of hearing this. Why in the red states? They're going into NOLA, and they're going into. So they are going into red states too. Because the difference is those governors are welcoming it and asking for it. All right, folks, stick with us. We'll be back 2 minutes 10 seconds for the fourth and final.
Headline news, weather, and local information central to your day on Radio Central 830 WCRN.
Hi, I'm Lee Gaudette of the Gaudette Insurance Agency, a third-generation family business based in Whitensville with branch office locations in Grafton, Shrewsbury, Westboro, and Southborough. We are a full-service independent agency offering all aspects of insurance to businesses, families, and individuals. We are in the peace of mind business. Call, click, or come in to see us at any of our locations for a free assessment of your insurance needs. Also, listen to Radio Central, WCRN, every Friday morning at 9:30 for the Gaudette Insurance Show.
Celebrate the season at Winter in Wooville. Lights, music, Santa's Workshop, Christmas Tree Village, and more at Polar Park this December. Get your tickets now at polarpark.com/Wooville.
Did you know your business loses $1,685 per employee each year? Poor health doesn't just mean sick days. It drains energy, lowers productivity, and impacts your bottom line. I'm Kelly Hamilton, certified holistic nutritionist, ICU nurse, and owner of A Better Path to Wellness. I help businesses create healthier workplaces so employees thrive and companies save money. Let's optimize the wellness and productivity of your team. Call 774-253-4934 today.
Looking for a station that brings you all sides of the story? Tune in to 50,000 watt powerhouse WCRN, where the left and the right meet in the middle. Whether you lean left, lean right, or just want to stay informed, WCRN has you covered with diverse voices, lively debates, and thought-provoking discussions. From politics and health to pop culture, you'll hear it all right here. Radio Central, where opinions from both sides come together for the conversations that matter. From the center of the dial, the center of New England, and the center of information, AM 830, WCRN, Radio Central.
All right, folks, welcome back here to the fourth and final segment of the Thursday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN, reminding folks that we do stream to my social media platforms at Joe Mangi Show, X, Facebook, Twitch TV, LinkedIn profile, and directly to Rumble, as well as the station's Facebook page and YouTube channel. And you can always follow me at Joe Mangi Show or go to joemangishow.com. And you'll see the shows posted there, the weekly report, and any articles or posts I do as well. And we'll be dropping, we have created, so we're going to drop this week's edition of the weekly report. You can listen to that here on the weekend. Mondays, I think, at 10 o'clock, or simply go to theweeklyreport.online or ff.org, and it will also be posted, of course, to joemangishow.com. On that note, I've mentioned it before, but Dr. Larry, who was a senior fellow with me and was a regular on the Joe Mangiacotti Show, has passed away. So I'm going to take this opportunity to say happy Thanksgiving, because I will be flying down to D.C. On Sunday and attending the wake and the funeral, and won't be coming back until Wednesday for Thanksgiving. And we'll have Jerry Doherty and Mike Wade, and people will sit in for me next week, and then we'll have some replays for the holiday. So I will take this opportunity to say happy Thanksgiving, because I probably won't be back on the air until after Thanksgiving. And again, I'll be going down for Dr. Larry's funeral and wake. So that is going on. But don't forget that this show is always turned into a podcast. It's just commercials are taken out, posted as a podcast, where you can subscribe on iHeartRadio, tuned in, Spotify, Google Play, wherever you get your podcasts at Joe Mangi Show. And then you'll be notified as soon as it gets posted, which is usually a few minutes after the show, after I get off the air of the show. 508-871-7000. Let me go to the phones. Tyler's waiting patiently. Hey, Tyler, what say you?
Happy Thanksgiving, and remind us that problems are opportunities for access, exposure, and improvement. And our generation had the most improvement.
Xers?
Because when you have the worst situation ever, we've never seen anything like this, Tyler. People like you and Ted, and people forget that the phrase "our will be done" is the collective will of the people. The good that binds us is what's going to dominate. You may have pockets of fraud and corruption, but they'll be found out. Hey, Joe, a quick comment and a quick question.
Sure.
In terms of just simple common sense, like that poor lady that committed suicide connected to the Epstein case, it's true that that's used as a tactic to silence people. It's also true that we're assuming in that. They could have other problems in their lives, and then try to cognate or let us think that. So based upon that premise, it's real. If you and I are friends, Ted and I are friends, and I get mad at you and go, "What are you doing stealing my girl and taking her to your resort?" That says two things. I'm not aware of it. I found out, and I'm pissed. And then you did it again, and I kicked you out. That's not what you call aiding and abetting and supportive of. It's just common sense. And here's another simple reality. A lot of these high-profile people and ex-presidents I've had the pleasure to meet. And when I said to one of them that there's a group up here, they're trying to create, fabricate, and make up information that's creating meaningful opposition, he said, of course. So when you have pockets of intelligence, like you said, that they clearly weaponize the DOJ. They send these people out to fabricate, instigate, and weaponize. That's a problem because the FBI is fidelity, bravery, integrity. They hate the flea-bitten, belligerent imbeciles. And here's another quick reality. You know, the Lolita Express, it had a kitchen and a large round couch. I went and found out by listening and talking to the girls that like the kitchen had in-house food. Just for a reference, it's $500 for those mint juleps at the Kentucky Derby. So they had a kale salad with this trimmings and a latte with a munchkin donut hole treat, and that was a $600 meal. And it sounds like exotic food, which is what these people have the opportunity and the pursuit of happiness. It's none of our business. And if someone is allegedly raped and a victim, and they're now saying that 10, 15 years later, why would they keep going back? And why would they get up to $3,000 for entertaining them, build up their bank account? If they were smart, they could have turned it into real estate and had a valuable income for the rest of their life. Why would they keep going back if they were victims and being raped? It just doesn't seem to make sense. You know, it sounds like Fantasy Island. And if this business was regulated, monitored, and legitimized, you wouldn't have all this chaos, and killing, and covering up.
Wait a minute. Tyler, there's a difference between, and I get what you're saying, but there is a difference between a person, male or female, who decides to either maybe go into exotic dancing or the escort service, which we understand what that is, or an underage person. And that's the problem with Epstein. What we're talking about, the 14-year-old girl that he got the conviction in 2008 with, and we're talking about the underage females that were on the Leota Express and on the island. They're underage. They legally can't go be enterprising, as you're suggesting, and taking their proceeds of $3,000 a night and investing in real estate. They legally don't have the ability to consent, Ted.
There's a very clear rule in the law that a 14-year-old cannot be solicited as a prostitute. That's rape. A very fixed
statutory
thing
rape
in the law.
Yeah.
And it's not statutory, that's practice. That's the way our court system operates.
And I mean, when you've got, I found out that Belgium, the age of consent in Belgium is 14, but it's not here in the United States. And it does vary from state to state, by the way. In Massachusetts, I think we're 16, which I was very surprised to learn that.
Right.
But they also have the age gap, because I think it's 16, but I think you have to be within 3 years of that or something to that effect. Don't quote me on this. I will research it. But it's not like you can be 50 and be with a 16-year-old. So
correct.
Yeah.
Correct. I understand the statute. They should maybe reconsider adjusting the statute. And this is the other thing that people keep forgetting.
Wait, you want us to lower the age of consent? Or?
No, hold on. Let me just finish the thought. When they're lying and making themselves older on paper, they're aware of the statute, or they wouldn't be lying about their age. And if it's 14 in Belgium and the women are hypersexual from age, say, 11, 12, 13, 14, and it seems to be a pervasive problem, personally, I don't find it entertaining or attractive. I like mature women, but I have morals and ethics. Maybe if this is a pattern and Belgium has it worked out and these girls were caught lying, you have to overall review this and think, is this a good policy in the system? That's all I'm suggesting. And I never took advantage once in my life of a girl. I sat them down 20 years ago when I got here. I had a house. I was young. Listen, don't let older guys like me manipulate you and take advantage of you. You have a value and a core blessing you and develop your life properly. But they said, we want you. I said, this is not appropriate. I don't feel comfortable. But I'm different. I'm just telling you, these girls can be very aggressive in ways you're not aware of. It happened to me my whole life. I never once crossed the line.
Yeah, absolutely, Tyler. I get what you're saying, but I'm not sure that the appetite for the nation is to change the laws to fit the Epstein formula. Look, we have ages of consent. We have ages age of when we become 18 and we're legal adults and we can enter into contracts, even though we can't buy a beer until you're 21, but you can go in the military at 18. You can go in at 17 with your parents' permission. And we do have age of consent, and there is the gap. Again, I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but I know that it's 16 in Massachusetts, but I think it's 3 years. I think as long as the two involved are like 16, 17, 18, 19. I don't think we should be changing that. And just because I think Belgium is a situation where they said, what are we going to do? The Tourist Bureau got together and said, we really don't have anything. And somebody said, hey, I got a crazy idea. Why don't we lower the age of consent to 14? We'll get all kinds of people coming here like Thailand. So I don't know what the deal is with Belgium. I don't know if we want to model ourselves off of Belgium. Just saying. Let Belgium do Belgium. And what was going on the Epstein Island, the mansion in New York, the plane, were underaged females who were not able to consent legally. Okay?
Just about every time that the United States has said, well, there's a model that works, let's adopt that here. it has failed miserably. The best example is the Scandinavian education model. They are doing very well, but they have a homogeneous society. They don't have a society made up of hundreds of different kinds and cultures.
Yeah. When you've got a limited population, and it's not very influenced by outside cultures, then there's something to be said about that. But as soon as things start to grow, meaning population grows exponentially, and you've got multiple cultures, and a lot of them resisting to accumulate, right? They're not fitting in. They're not becoming part of that culture. They want to take their culture and bring it in the country and then change. That's what we're seeing. I think probably the one community, I think, my opinion, 508-871-7000, if you don't agree, is the Muslim community, is the one that has, I believe, the most intent on not assimilating to our culture, but in imposing theirs on us. And they say it. I mean, it's their mission, is the one true religion, and everybody needs to be Muslim. And they're allowed by the Quran to lie and be deceitful if the result is to get you either to become Muslim or to submit. And that is what the tax, they beat you into submission and humiliate you to pay. And that is the practice. But we've watched here in Boston, right? We watched the Italians come in, Irish come in and assimilate in. And the Irish very early realized, the ballot box, that's where our power will be. And the Irish became ward bosses. And then they held offices. And it took 350 years for Boston to get an Italian mayor. But this wraps up the Thursday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. Happy Thanksgiving, folks. You won't hear from me until after Thanksgiving. I'll be down in D.C. until Wednesday. And I'll be back for Thanksgiving. Enjoy yours with family and friends. But this will wrap up today's edition and ends me for the week. Enjoy the rest of the weekend, folks. Joe out.